Nobody remembers the man who created the Volkswagen Bus. He was never on the payroll. He never held an engineering title. He never attended a single design meeting. He was a Dutch car dealer who walked into a bombed-out German factory to buy some Beetles, and left behind a sketch that changed automotive history. And the engineer who actually built it. He had been working as a service manager at a Hamburg garage just months before, with no factory, no title, and a career the war had nearly destroyed. A salesman with a notebook. A broken engineer with everything to prove. Together, without ever planning it, they gave the world one of the most beloved vehicles ever made. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear is not legend. It is documented, verified history, and it is far more surprising than anything the brochure ever told you. Ben Pon visited the Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg in 1946. He was there simply to negotiate importing Beetles to the Netherlands, nothing more. But while walking the factory floor, something stopped him. He noticed an improvised parts mover, a crude flatbed vehicle built on a Beetle chassis, used by workers to haul components from one end of the plant to the other. They called it the Plattenwagen. It was ugly. It was basic. But something clicked in Pon's mind immediately. He was not looking at a factory trolley. He was looking at a concept waiting to exist. A forward cab van, engine in the rear, maximum usable space in between. He came back in 1947 with more detailed sketches. On April 23rd of that year, he recorded his idea in his notebook. That original sketch now sits in the permanent collection of the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, alongside Rembrandt. A car dealer's notebook page. In a national museum. Let that sit for a moment. The British managers running the factory at the time were too absorbed keeping up with Beetle demand to act on the idea. The sketch waited. And while it waited, Heinrich Nordhoff was trying to put his life back together on the other side of Germany. Nordhoff was not just any engineer. He had graduated from the Technical College in Berlin, worked on aircraft engines at BMW, then risen to become commercial technical director at Opel, where he introduced the Cadet to the German public in 1936. By 1942, he was running the largest truck plant in Europe at Brandenburg. Then the war ended. And with it, everything. After the war, Nordhoff was barred from working in the American-occupied sector because of a business award he had received from the Nazis. He found what work he could. He became a service manager at a Hamburg garage. The man who had run Europe's biggest truck factory was managing oil changes and tire checks. It was from this position that the British military government recruited him, at the urging of Major Ivan Hurst, who had been directing the bombed-out Volkswagen plant at Wolfsburg. On January 1, 1948, Nordhoff walked into VW as managing director. What he found there would have made most men walk straight back out. The factory was damaged. Workers were malnourished. Steel was rationed so severely that large sheets were unavailable. Two smaller pieces had to be welded together to form the roof of every single car. This is what he inherited. And yet within his first year alone, Nordhoff doubled production to 19,244 cars. Not by luck. By engineering discipline and an unshakable philosophy he later put into words himself. Offering people an honest value appealed to me more than being driven around by a bunch of hysterical stylists trying to sell people something they really don't want to have. That philosophy, honest value over style, became the DNA of everything Volkswagen built under him. We did not start from an available chassis, we started from the cargo space. Heinrich Nordhoff, presenting the Type 2 to the world, November 1949. By 1948, Nordhoff returned to Ben Pon's idea. The project was given the internal code EA7, Entwicklungsauftrag number 7, Development Project number 7. The prototype was known internally as the Type 29. But almost immediately, the engineers hit a wall. The original Beetle floor pan proved far too weak for the load. Nothing could be borrowed directly. A completely new ladder chassis with unit body construction had to be designed from first principles, in a ruined country, under pressure that would have broken most organizations. 3 months later, a prototype existed. Then came the moment that shaped the most recognizable face in automotive history, and almost no one knows about it. Wind tunnel tests at the Technical University of Braunschweig returned poor results. The prototype's drag coefficient sat at a dismal 0.75. The design looked like it would push more air than it parted. Then an anonymous worker at the university made a suggestion: curve the front more, split the windshield into a V-shape. Engineers ran the numbers. The drag coefficient dropped all the way to 0.44, actually better than the Beetle's own 0.48. A flat-fronted van was aerodynamically superior to the rounded car it was based on. That split windshield you see in every photograph of the Type 2 was not a styling decision. It was the result of wind tunnel science, suggested by a person whose name history never recorded. Once you know that, you cannot look at that face the same way again. Nordhoff approved the van for production on May 19, 1949. The first production model rolled off the line on November 12 of that year. When he presented it to the world, Nordhoff described the design principle plainly. "We did not start from an available chassis, we started from the cargo space. The driver at the front, the engine at the back, equal weight distribution. The best honest compromise." The market responded immediately. Because the van cost no more than 5,125 guilders, roughly €2,330 in today's terms, even small entrepreneurs could afford one. Around 8,000 were built in the first year alone, and a second factory had to be opened in 1955 just to keep pace with demand. What happened next is where the Type 2 story becomes extraordinary. An ambulance model was added in December 1951, which repositioned the fuel tank, moved the spare tire, and added a tailgate-style rear door. These features became standard on the Type 2 from 1955 to 1967. Beyond that, it was converted into refrigerated vans, hearses, police vehicles, fire engines, and ladder trucks. The Deutsche Bundesbahn, Germany's national railway, even had 30 rail-going versions built in 1955, running on tracks instead of roads. A vehicle conceived as a simple delivery van was, within 5 years, serving as an ambulance, a fire truck, a postal workhorse, a police vehicle, and a railway maintenance car. Nordhoff had planned none of this. The design was simply honest enough that people kept finding new ways to trust it. Then came 1964, and a small detail that quietly rewrote the entire van industry. That year saw the introduction of an optional sliding door for the passenger and cargo area, instead of the outwardly hinged doors every cargo van had always used. Every competitor used doors that swung outward, fine on an open road, useless in a narrow city alley or a tight loading bay. The sliding door meant you could park anywhere, open fully, and get to work. Some automotive historians consider the 1964 Type 2 one of the earliest true forerunners of the modern minivan concept. The term itself would not even be coined for another 2 decades. Today, every delivery van, every airport shuttle, every school minibus in the world uses the same principle. The Type 2 did it first, and said nothing about it. Now comes the ending. German production of the original Type 2 stopped after the 1967 model year. But in Brazil, where Volkswagen had been building the van since 1957, production continued. The original T1 style was built there until 1975. A modified version ran until 1996. Then the T2 series continued all the way to the end. The last Volkswagen Combi rolled off the Sao Paulo assembly line in December 2013. Volkswagen had planned to build 600 last edition units to mark the occasion. Demand was so strong they had to produce 1,200. The reason production ended was not falling sales. New Brazilian safety regulations required airbags and ABS in all new vehicles from 2014. VW's head of marketing in Brazil confirmed it plainly. Because of the flat front structure, installing an airbag simply was not technically possible. The Combi would have had to become a completely new car. 63 years after the first one left Wolfsburg, The Volkswagen Bus was not retired. It was legislated out of existence. Even at the very end, people still wanted it. A salesman sketch, drawn in a notebook during a factory visit nobody asked him to make, now preserved in a national museum. An engineer pulled from a Hamburg garage, who doubled production in his first year and turned that sketch into a global icon. An anonymous university worker whose single suggestion shaped the most recognized face in automotive history. A van that became an ambulance, a fire engine, a railway vehicle, and a symbol of freedom, without trying to be any of them. And a final production run in Brazil, 63 years later, that sold out before it even ended. This is the real story of the Volkswagen Type 2. Not the legend. The documented, verified, human truth behind it. 2 men, 1 idea, and 63 years of the world refusing to let it go. If you or someone you knew ever had a Type 2 in the family, a memory, a road trip, a summer, a life, share it in the comments. These vans carried more stories than anyone ever counted. Yours deserves to be among them.